Kawaki already has one of the most dangerous power combinations in the entire Boruto world, but I don't think his next level of strength is going to come from some brand new transformation. Today I'm breaking down 5 of Kawaki's abilities that keep getting slept on, and I'm convinced they're going to play a huge role in the 2 Blue Vortex manga. But before we get into it, make sure you're subscribed and drop a like. That's how I know you want more videos like this. The first overlooked ability is the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Sounds weird, right? In a world where Kawaki basically has a body that functions like a weapon, going back to something as basic as this technique feels almost too simple. But that's exactly where its value lies. Naruto didn't just show him the hand sign and tell him to copy it, he passed down a piece of his own philosophy. The idea that one person can split their workload and responsibility across multiple copies of themselves. In the classic databooks, clones are described as fully physical bodies that transfer their experience back to the original once they disappear. For Kawaki, that makes clones a nearly perfect tool for scouting, applying pressure, and pulling off sudden position swaps, because every single clone can use Sukuna Hikona and Kokugan too. I get why Kawaki isn't fully comfortable relying on clones at first. He's used to direct orders, to survival mode, to treating his own body like a machine. Using a clone means trusting your own instincts, and that's not really his thing. Naruto used to make dozens of clones to learn faster, trick his enemies, and turn isolation into teamwork. Kawaki can apply that same principle, just differently send a clone to scout the Shinju, bait an opponent into revealing a technique, then step into a fight he's already studied. In the current stretch of 2 Blue Vortex, where every confrontation throws powerful enemies and sudden threats at him one after another, that kind of information advantage is priceless. The second ability is his fire-style techniques. Don't expect a second Sasuke or a new Madara here. What makes Kawaki's fire interesting is exactly how rough around the edges it is. In the anime, his training sessions with Naruto show us something important. Kawaki isn't learning this move to look cool. He's learning it because he wants a path that isn't completely dependent on his implants or his karma. According to the data books, fire style usually demands precise breathing, solid chakra control, and real inner confidence. So even a short burst of flame from Kawaki actually means a lot more than it looks like on the surface. I'd argue fire is what gives him back a piece of his humanity, a reminder that his father was a shinobi. And here's where it gets really interesting. Picture a shadow clone opening up an attack angle while the real Kawaki closes the distance and releases fire the moment the enemy commits to a defensive stance. Since the enemy already knows about Sukuna Hikona and Daikokuten, fire becomes the move they don't see coming. The clone can throw up a smoke screen, force a reaction, and even take a hit meant for the original. This isn't some massive technique on the level of Madara's fireball jutsu, but it fits Kawaki's style perfectly: fast, efficient, no wasted movement. If the manga ever gives him more control over fire, he could start blending it with his implants, his rods, and his close combat style. That's when his fighting style would feel like something truly his own, instead of just a bunch of borrowed powers stapled together. The third ability is absorbing ninjutsu through karma. Kawaki has to correctly judge the timing, direction, and danger level of the attack he's absorbing. Get that wrong and he's left wide open for a counter. In the anime, the fight against Delta shows exactly how technology can outsmart Otsutsuki level power when Kawaki miscalculates. Karma ties Kawaki to the very same power source he hates, the Otsutsuki, and that creates a genuinely compelling contradiction. In the 2 Blue Vortex manga, that contradiction only gets sharper. Kawaki wants to be strong enough to wipe out the threat in front of him, but he also has to face the fact that his main tools of power all trace back to the exact system he's trying to save the world from. His recent conversations with Amado make karma feel even more dangerous. It's not just a power-up button anymore, it's part of a construct that someone else might be able to control. And that turns the real conflict into something bigger than just Kawaki versus Boruto. It becomes a battle inside Kawaki himself, between his own will and the programming built into a vessel that Amado had a hand in creating. Which brings us smoothly into ability number 4. The fourth ability is his body modification through scientific augmentation. Most viewers only notice the flashy stuff, the blades, the shields, the extending limbs, but Kawaki's real strength here is versatility. He can reshape his limbs mid-fight, turning defense into offense instantly, with 0 hand signs and 0 pause. In the old-school Naruto world, this kind of thing would have been considered flat-out overpowered. A shinobi's body used to be the product of training, genetics, and chakra control. But the Boruto era asks a very different question. If technology is what keeps a shinobi alive, does he stop being a shinobi at all? Genuinely interesting philosophical question, and I'd love to hear your take on it in the comments. In actual combat, this modification is especially brutal against opponents who rely on reading rhythm and patterns. Kawaki can throw up a shield, absorb a hit, grow a spike, or extend an arm without so much as changing his expression, and by that same logic, his clones can pull off the exact same tricks. His real advantage isn't raw power, it's the constant uncertainty he creates. Is the person in front of you human, a weapon, or a trap? But there's an honest downside here too. A technological body needs resources, control, and a clear understanding of its own limits. The most recent chapters keep hinting that Amado's involvement was never some free, no-strings-attached gift. The more Kawaki leans on borrowed power, the more fragile his whole idea of freedom becomes. The fifth ability is his black rods, and the chakra effects tied to them. It's easy to lump these in as just another piece of generic Otsutsuki weaponry, but Kawaki actually uses them in a pretty unique way. They're not just stabbing weapons, even though that's mostly how Kawaki himself seems to think of them right now. A rod can pin down movement, break an opponent's rhythm, apply constant pressure, and force the enemy to stay aware of the space around Kawaki at all times. He hasn't fully unlocked everything these black rods can do yet, but that could easily change down the line. Combine that with clones, and you get a simple but nastily effective combat system. One mistake, and the enemy can't close the distance anymore. The battlefield turns into his cage, and a swarm of Kawaki clones makes sure there's no room to take that next step. And this is where it all clicks into place why none of these abilities should really be looked at on their own. Shadow clones give Kawaki numbers and information. Fire lets him control distance and force defensive reactions. Karma handles ninjutsu absorption. His body modifications turn any attack into a continuation of his last move, and the black rods lock down space itself. Individually, sure, they're just a toolkit. But if Kawaki ever learns to use all five at once, his entire fighting style changes completely. He'd be able to make an opponent react to one threat, while the real attack comes from a completely different direction. And that's exactly why I think his true breakthrough moment has to come from letting go of Amado's power and accepting a hard truth. Without the Otsutsuki power and Amado's tech, he's actually the weaker fighter. That's basically what pushed Naruto, back in the day, to walk away from relying on Kurama and commit to mastering Sage Mode instead. Recognizing that weakness is the first real step toward the kind of strength Kawaki's been chasing this whole time. And if Kawaki actually pulls that off, if he learns to combine everything the way we just laid out, I'm confident these 5 abilities are going to matter a lot more in Blue Vortex than people currently give them. His whole job is to fuse his instinct for close combat with his engineered body, his clones, karma, fire, and flexible use of the black rods to lock down space and movement. And honestly, I think a lot of his underrated status comes purely from fan expectations. Now, the flaws obviously haven't gone anywhere. Kawaki is emotionally unstable, burns through his stamina way too fast, makes some genuinely strange decisions, and constantly mixes up his priorities across pretty much every part of his life. The anime makes this painfully clear. Being around Naruto helps him open up a little, and then he shuts right back down again. In the manga, his obsession with keeping everyone safe starts crossing into something almost tragic. He's capable of looking at Boruto and seeing not a brother, but a walking disaster waiting to happen, because that framing makes it easier for him to justify almost anything. If he keeps refusing to work as part of a team, then the clones, the fire techniques, and the body modifications are just going to end up being different masks worn by someone who convinced himself he was some kind of god and failed. It's just my theory and interpretation, but it's based on what we've actually been shown in the anime and manga. Drop your thoughts in the comments, make sure you're subscribed, and stick around. There's a lot more good stuff coming.